first of all, I want to reiterate the fact that it has been an unprecedented crisis, and there is no fallback unless we go back 100 years to see what transpired and how it was handled. So it's an unprecedented crisis, and it is backed by lots of uncertainty. Scenarios like this, more than profitability, liquidity becomes the key driver for the business survival and their growth. So therefore, as a finance function, I think liquidity becomes the key factor to ensure in this difficult time to continue and not to lose sight with regard to the health of the business on the liquidity. Important aspect here is when the revenue becomes under stress, how do one ensures the cost reduction in order to maintain that you do not run into the negative cash flow on a day-to-day basis. So therefore, when there were reviews happening on a monthly basis in a short term, you start doing it on a daily basis. And working capital becomes extremely relevant in this scenario, whether you talk in terms of receivables, whether the collections are happening appropriately, payables, whether the vendors are in a position to supply you, because it's not adequate that only as a corporate you are self-sufficient. It is also important that your business partners, who are your vendors and your distributors, are also equally competent to ensure that the business runs smoothly in this time of challenges and testing times. So that becomes very important. When we look at even on a regulatory or a statutory basis, where the SEBI is also asking that all the carry of assets, whether it is working capital or it is fixed assets or intangible, has to be at the fair and realizable value. One needs to make sure that we do not straddle with any of the assets which are not as per the fair value. So that's another very important aspect one needs to keep in mind, that one needs to ensure that all the assets that it's carrying, whether it is investment in securities, whether it is goodwill, whether it is fixed assets, whether it is working capital in form of receivables or advances given, etc. So one needs to have a very sharp focus on these aspects, and it has to be a micro management and not just a macro management. So that's the another change in strategy one needs to look at. The challenge here is that it is uncertain. Nobody is sure whether things are going to come back in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whether it is going to be V-shaped recovery, W-shape, or it is going to be L-shape. So in this scenario, managing cash and the liquidity becomes the prime importance there. Second very important thing is to ensure the cost, and therefore one needs to look at the zero-based budgeting approach, where one needs to question every expenditure, whether it is required to be incurred, whether it can be deferred, whether it can be done less resources and more productivity. I think that has to be a kind of a drive that one needs to look into and be very specific and very focused on that. Third aspect, which is very relevant here, is to leverage technology. I think it is not just challenges. I think it is a great opportunity. Everybody has learned to work remotely. Everybody has learned to fill the gap between face-to-face discussions or travel, etc. That's a great opportunity, and one needs to leverage it not just for short term but also for the long run. And this can help in terms of reducing the cost also. So I think these aspects becomes very relevant, and a very strong focus on all these aspects, on the liquidity, on the profitability, and another aspect relevant is on the sustainability, which is again very important. The old ways may not remain good. If that was working well in the past, may not necessarily be working best in the future. So one needs to have the culture of innovation, and therefore that becomes very important in terms of whether it is product, services, approach, deliverables. I think that's another way where we have to allow the kind of the innovation and creativity to come in so that we are able to leverage this challenge to convert it into an opportunity.